What are the two conditions for good deeds to be accepted by Allah? Whenever we do any good deed and we want Allah to accept that from us and to reward us for that, there's two conditions that we need to meet for that deed to be accepted by Allah. And this is very important because we don't want to do good deeds, we don't want to worship Allah, and then we come on the Day of Judgment and we find that all of that worship is rejected from us. So, what are these two conditions? And in fact, when we reflect on Surah Al-Fatiha, we will find these two conditions within Surah Al-Fatiha. The first of those conditions is sincere intention. Sincere intention. That you do that action sincerely for the sake of Allah. When we say إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ, it translates to you we worship and you we seek assistance from, you we seek help from. You we worship. إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ. And as I mentioned in the previous video when we were going through the explanation of this ayah, by mentioning the verb or by mentioning the object before the verb, that means exclusivity, that we worship Allah and we don't worship anyone else. So when we do this action, we're seeking the pleasure of Allah, we're seeking to please Allah, we're seeking to do what Allah loves. And so we don't do it to impress other people, we don't do it to show off, as we're going to come to discover that in fact showing off in doing good deeds, specifically in acts of worship, is a grave sin. And so we need to be careful. So the first intention is sincere intention. The first condition is sincere intention. The second condition is that action that you do follows the sunnah. Follows the sunnah. And we mentioned sunnah is the way of the Prophet. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So, what we do has to, number one, be sincerely for the sake of Allah, number one, and number two is that we do it following the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And in our class, we've mentioned one specific example which clearly demonstrates why it's important to follow the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And it's the incident that occurred when a couple of or three youth, they heard about the worship of the Prophet ﷺ, and they said, we need to do something more because the Prophet ﷺ, his worship was so much, we can't keep up, we need to do something so that we can try to reach his level ﷺ. So they innovated something. They said, one of them said, I will fast every day and I will never break my fast, meaning every single day I'm going to fast until I die. The second said, I'm going to stay up all night and pray and I'm never going to sleep. And the third said, I am going to never marry from women. And when this news reached the Prophet ﷺ, when he heard about what they said, the Prophet ﷺ was angry, he was upset. And he said that I fast some days and I don't fast other days. And I pray part of the night and I sleep from the night as well. And I marry women. And whoever doesn't like my sunnah, is not follow or satisfied by my sunnah, is not from me. So it's very important that whenever we do an action, we do it sincerely for the sake of Allah, but then we have to make sure that that action is based on the way of the Prophet ﷺ, and it doesn't contradict the way of the Prophet ﷺ. And so we need to keep this in mind whenever we do any good action, any good deed, that we have these two conditions, and we hope that Allah accepts from us. And in the next video we will talk about the conditions of tawbah, which is a very, very important lesson. Whenever we do anything wrong, how do we turn back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? If you know the conditions, then pause the video now and mention it in the comments.